Audience, please rise for the presentation of the colors. Guard, present colors. Please remain standing while Middlesex Community College student Nicole Walden recites the national anthem. Nicole.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight our ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you. As you know, this is happening inside. However, on the first anniversary of 9/11, Middlesex Community College, as some of you might not be aware of, did plant a tree outside on the first anniversary of 9/11. It is a mimosa tree. It's just beyond the gazebo and up towards the upper parking lot. Because of the soggy weather, we decided to move it inside here today, but I thought I'd mention that for you. A lot of you might have walked by and not realized that. Well, we're here today. Tuesday morning, September 11th, 2001, was shaping up to be a beautiful day, probably one of the 10 best days of the year. Clear skies, low humidity, a gentle breeze. Other than the remarkable weather, it was just another Tuesday, weekday, work day. So it was puzzling to hear that a passenger jet airliner had flown into one of the World Trade Center towers, perhaps during a storm or heavy fog. No sooner could one ponder what might have happened on board that plane, another passenger jet flew into the other World Trade Center tower. As it disappeared in a ball of fire, so did any notion that this was an accident or coincidence. Reports soon came in that a third passenger jet had flown into the Pentagon and a fourth one had crashed in Pennsylvania. It became apparent these four incidents were connected and were part of a deliberate plan of attack on American soil. By now, the entire country watched in shock and disbelief as people trapped in the upper stories of the towers waved for help and rescue, and black smoke trailed across a blue sky, carried by that gentle breeze. The people in those towers were ordinary Americans with ordinary lives, people who only hours before had dropped their kids off at school or daycare, kissed their spouse goodbye as they headed out for work, or got on a plane. Military service members and members of law enforcement, fire and rescue, all realized their jobs contain a very real risk of life and safety as they report for duty each day. Prior to 9/11, office workers most likely felt the most hazardous part of their day was the commute to and from work. Yet here we were, with live reporters bringing us this image of chaos, confusion, and bewilderment of what once was just a place of work. As we watched, trying to comprehend what we were seeing, trying to imagine the unimaginable, this place of work was reduced to rubble before our eyes. It took with it the lives of the ordinary Americans in it, the lives of those brave men and women who were trying to help those Americans find safety, and forever change the lives of the families of those people. The giant gray dust cloud that resulted from this utter destruction seemed to chase the fleeing people on the streets and covered everything in its path, as if to further prove that what just happened was indeed real. In the days and weeks and months that followed, we started to get answers, explanations, reasons for the whys, hows, and whats. In the 10 years since 9/11, surviving family members still have questions. People have come to terms, and with perhaps an incomplete past, we have learned to move on and continue to be Americans. Today, we pause in our ordinary lives to remember those lost on 9/11 and wish that the survivors and families can find strength and inner peace to live their lives with dignity and respect. May they find comfort in knowing that the loss of their loved ones has helped communities pull together, understand one another, and rebuild in times of despair and hardship. Thank you. For the next portion of our program, I would like to hand over the podium to, for the President's address, Dr. Anna Wasesha, the President of Middlesex Community College.
Well, I'm so pleased to see everybody here, up the stairs and in the back hallway, as well as here in the chairs in the front. I am honored to be asked to say a little bit about 9/11. I thought initially, as I'm sure we all do, about where I was that day and what I remembered about that event. And then I read an article in the Hartford Courant last Sunday about how much we really do remember of tragic and traumatic events, and often we don't remember as much as we thought we did. And so I thought today the gift I would bring to this celebration is a poem by Robert Bly, who is quite elderly, but he's still hanging in there. He's the Poet Laureate of Minnesota. I've heard him read just, I think, hundreds of times. He's quite powerful. And he often is able to teach me something about life that I hadn't discovered on my own. And in this case, this poem is called Courting Forgetfulness. And I want to read it today because it's important that we remember this day and those events, but there's a purpose to forgetfulness too, and so I wanted to share this with you. It's hard to know what sort of rough music could send our forgetfulness back into the ground, from which the grave diggers pulled it years ago. The first moment of the day, we court forgetfulness. Even when we are fully awake, a century can go by in the space of a single heartbeat. The life we lose through forgetfulness resembles the earth that sticks to the sides of plowshares and the eggs the hen has abandoned in the woods. 1,000 gifts were given to us in the womb. We lost hundreds during the forgetfulness of birth, and we lost the old heaven on the first day of school. Forgetfulness resembles the snow that weighs down the fir boughs. Behind our house, you'll find a forest going on for hundreds of miles. Robert, as in Robert Bly. Robert, it's to your credit that you remember so many lines of Rilke, but the purpose of forgetfulness is to remember the last time we left this world. I hope that helps make us all feel better about what we remember and what we also have forgotten. There's a purpose to that. Thank you.
Thank you for those remarks, Dr. Wasesha. Next, I'd like to introduce you to Christine Ruggiero. She's a faculty member here at Middlesex Community College, and Christine is going to give us an inspirational poetry reading.
So I too have the gift of poetry, and I'm going to read a poem called The Names by Billy Collins, who wrote the poem for the first anniversary of 9/11. He read it, I believe it was on September 6th, 2002, on the PBS NewsHour with Jim Lair, and he dedicated it to the victims of 9/11 and their survivors. The Names. Yesterday I lay awake in the palm of the night. A soft rain stole in, unhelped by any breeze. And when I saw the silver glaze on the windows, I started with A, with Ackerman, as it happened. Then Baxter and Calabro, Davis and Elberling, names falling into place as droplets fell through the dark. Names printed on the ceiling of the night, names slipping around a watery bend. 26 willows on the banks of a stream. In the morning, I walked out barefoot among thousands of flowers, heavy with dew like the eyes of tears, and each had a name. Fiore inscribed on a yellow petal, then Gonzalez and Hahn, Ishikawa and Jenkins, names written in the air and stitched into the cloth of the day. A name under a photograph taped to a mailbox, monogram on a torn shirt. I see you spelled out on storefront windows and on the bright unfurled awnings of the city. I say the syllables as I turn a corner, Kelly and Lee, Medina, Nardella, and O'Connor. When I peer into the woods, I see a thick tangle where letters are hidden as in a puzzle concocted for children. Parker and Quigley in the twigs of an ash, Rizzo, Schubert, Torres, and Upton, secrets in the boughs of an ancient maple. Names written in the pale sky, names rising in the updraft amid buildings, names silent and stoned or cried out behind a door. Names blown over the earth and out to sea. In the evening, weakening light, the last swallows. A boy on a lake lifts his oars. A woman by a window puts a match to a candle, and the names are outlined on the rose clouds. Vanacore and Wallace. Let X stand, if it can, for the ones unfound. Then Young and Zeminski, the final jolt of Z. Names etched on the head of a pin. One name spanning a bridge, another undergoing a tunnel. A blue name needled into the skin. Names of citizens, workers, mothers, and fathers. The bright-eyed daughter, the quick son. Alphabet of names in a green field, names in the small tracks of birds, names lifted from a hat or balanced on the tip of the tongue. Names wheeled into the dim warehouse of memory. So many names, there is barely room on the walls of the heart.
I'm going to ask a representative of the student body to come forward here. And we have a depiction of a plaque that is going to be placed at the 9/11 tree that I mentioned earlier. This is a representation of it. Can you please hold it up front here for everyone? And in case you can't read it, it is what it says is Middlesex Community College commemorates September 11th, 2001 to honor those who lost their lives, the survivors, and those who work for the healing and safety of all individuals. Just as rain, sun, and soil will nourish this tree, we must nurture peace in our hearts and minds through our words and actions. At this time, I would like everybody to join me in a moment of silence as we hear a toll for each of the years that has passed since 9/11. Finally, I'd like you to all please join in with me. We have these pages printed out, and we'd like to end this ceremony. If you could please join me singing America the Beautiful. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plains. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Guard, prepare to retire the colors. Audience, please rise. Guard, retire the colors.